All right, welcome back to the channel. So, words being exchanged between Adrien Broner and Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman dogging Adrien Broner, saying, man, he can't beat me. His grandmama slaps him back. Something like that, man. I like both these guys. They're two of the more funny guys at 147 pounds. And this is a fight that really should happen, and I do believe will happen. It makes sense for both of these guys. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. Subscribers, hey, thank you guys so much for your support over the last several years with the channel. It's so much appreciated. Also, thank you to everybody that supports in the super chats and the Cash App and the live streams that we do Monday through Friday and Sunday morning with OG Boxing Talk. And thank you to everybody who's been a Patreon and supporting Patreon over the last year. We got more stuff coming for you. Now let's get into this. Keith Thurman. Keith, one-time Thurman. Some people call him Keith. Some people call him Ponytail. Other people call him Once Upon a Time Keith Thurman. But Keith Thurman is a very, very, very good fighter, man, and gave some real good, exciting moments in boxing. After Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather Jr. fell off, well, Floyd Mayweather never fell off. He retired, and Manny Pacquiao was no longer in the good graces of Bob Arum, and Bob Arum was starting to look for somebody to feed him to, so that he could take all of that social cachet that had been built up in Manny Pacquiao and pass it to another one of his fighters. Manny Pacquiao didn't go for it. And he wasn't succeeding, but regardless, during that period of time, Keith Thurman rose to the top of the welterweight division. He wound up becoming a WBA and the WBC unified champion. He beat very solid fighters in order to do it, man. Robert the Ghost Guerrero is a solid fighter. Sean Porter is an extremely solid fighter. Danny Garcia is a very, very solid fighter. And those two guys are both top five welterweights that Keith Thurman had beaten. He goes into he has injuries. We'll treat him like the injuries are real. I know there's a lot of people that don't buy it, but hey, man, from what I understand, the dude was injured. He sat out 2 years. He comes back. He fights Josecito Lopez, knocks Josecito Lopez down. Doesn't look particularly good in the fight. Looks bad enough in that fight for Manny Pacquiao to say, and Freddie Roach to say, yeah, that's the guy that we want to fight for a title, right? Manny Pacquiao was in the ring with Errol Spence Jr. watching the Mikey Garcia fight, but somehow after Errol Spence Jr. beat up Mikey Garcia like that, Manny Pacquiao decided to go elsewhere and went over to Keith Thurman, beats Keith Thurman in a good fight that a lot of people really underestimate the performance of Keith Thurman in. Keith Thurman was putting some work on Manny Pacquiao, man. That was not some runaway fight. Manny Pacquiao won the fight, but it was a good fight. I thought it was a very good fight. And that being Keith Thurman, really for the first time in almost 3 years, really stepping up to top-notch competition. So I'm not one of these guys that are I'm not just writing off Keith Thurman as somebody that is not going to be competitive with the top fighters. I would love to see a Keith Thurman fight against Sean Porter, Keith Thurman fight against Errol Spence Jr., Keith Thurman fight against Terrence Crawford, Keith Thurman fight against Ugas. Any of these guys, dude, Keith Thurman is going to be somebody that is going to be first of all, I still think he beats Danny Garcia. Think he'll beat Danny Garcia again. He has a good chance of beating Sean Porter again. But, he's in a situation politically where, he was acting a bit of a jerk when he was the man. So Errol Spence Jr. ain't trying to hear it. Manny Pacquiao already beat Keith Thurman, so he's not trying to hear it. Terrence Crawford is over there top rank. And so Bob Arum ain't trying to pay for it. Bob Arum is constantly talking about how expensive everybody over there at the PBC is. Well, we can't make a fight between Terrence Crawford and Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is going to want too much money. We can't make a fight between Terrence Crawford and Sean Porter. Sean Porter's going to want to make too much money, right? So seeing as Keith Thurman makes the same money as Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman makes as much money in a fight as Sean Porter and as much as Mikey Garcia. It ain't going to be any cheaper to make a fight with Keith Thurman. So Terrence Crawford is off the table for him more than likely. And if Terrence Crawford and Bob Arum are going to do that, they've already said what they wanted to do. They want the Manny Pacquiao fight. They want the Errol Spence Jr. fight. Those are the PBC fighters that he's looking at. Keith Thurman ain't one of them. So that's the same situation though that Adrien Broner's in. But except for I think everybody likes to fight Adrien Broner. You know, Adrien Broner brings a lot of personality to the table. He's not one of the elite welterweights, but he's one of the elite personalities and one of the elite attractions for sure in the welterweight division. And it's just it's a perfect situation for the two. It's a situation for Keith Thurman to get a win against a good fighter because Adrien Broner is a good fighter, man. Adrien Broner had a good fight against Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao did not run through Adrien Broner. He had a good fight against against Sean Porter. He actually managed to drop Sean Porter. He fought, to a draw against Jesse Vargas. My personal belief is that he got jobbed. I think Adrien Broner beat Jesse Vargas, in my opinion. He's a top competitive fighter. Something that is definitely worth seeing against Keith Thurman. Now, Keith Thurman, though, seemed as if he was very dismissive of the idea, saying that, man, Keith, what Adrien Broner doesn't do. Adrien Broner doesn't throw but three punches over 4 rounds. He couldn't slap back his mother. Couldn't slap back his grandmother, whatever. Just basically, joning on him, man, talking bad about him. But, at the end of the day, man, what you gonna do, Keith? Who you gonna fight? Who's gonna want to fight you? More than likely nobody, except for maybe some up-and-coming fighters that can make a name out of you if they feel like they can, right? But even then, their trainers aren't going to put them in there with Keith Thurman at this stage in their career. Not Jaron Ennis, not Virgil Ortiz, and the 140-pounders that are going to move up. Like Regis Prograis could move up. Maybe you can move up and get Regis Prograis to fight you. But is Regis Prograis is going to be a better fight against Sean Porter, against Keith Thurman than Adrien Broner would be, I do believe. But he's, as much as I like Regis Prograis, he's Regis Prograis. That name does not resonate like Adrien Broner's does. So most likely, dude, the best way for him to go about this thing is just make the fight. And it's a fight that would do extremely well for the networks because they're both very entertaining. Could you imagine listening to multiple press conferences between Keith Thurman and Adrien Broner? Man, it would be a riot, dude. It would be a riot. It would get headlines. You would go look at Boxing Scene, look at some of the more popular, or the more some of the bigger websites that actually, put out boxing news. You would see up and down. I've got a particular place I like to go to pick up boxing news, even though it's kind of heavy in the UK stuff. Regardless, the American news does trickle into that, but it keeps flowing, man. And you keep seeing these, and you see all these headlines. It would be headline after headline after headline about something crazy Keith Thurman said or something crazy Adrien Broner said, in the lead up to that fight. And I think that it would also be a very, very good. I think it would also be a very good fight between the two. Keith Thurman is right about Adrien Broner not throwing a lot of punches and not really letting his hands go. I do believe that obviously he's right about that. That's been a concern about Adrien Broner, an observation people made about Adrien Broner since Adrien Broner went up to the 147 pounds and skipped 140 for. I mean, man, I just think he really went for the gusto too much. But since he skipped over to 147 pounds, that's pretty much been the issue with him, right? Is that he doesn't let his hands go. But so he's flawed in that regard. But in the same breath, so is Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman can't take a body shot. So you don't know what's going to happen with that because Adrien Broner can crack. At 100, Adrien Broner can crack at 147 pounds. Now, he might not be willing to let his hands go. He not using the best foot, whatever, right? Saying, that he's more limited technically than some of the top 147 pounders. If you believe that to be the case, cool. You believe that to be the case. However, none of them guys are just going to take a straight shot from Adrien Broner. Adrien Broner's left hook will drop you. And if he can get that left hook to that body after Keith in the second half of the fight, when Keith Thurman starts to slow down a little bit, dude, Adrien Broner might be able to do something and get Keith Thurman out of there, or hurt him and win the fight. I don't know. But anyway it goes, dude, that's probably the best. It's probably the best fight that can be made for Keith Thurman, and it's the best fight that can be made for Adrien Broner. So let's just make the fight, man, because I'm waiting to see it, man. I will be cracking up. I know that would bring so many good laughs to the sport of boxing during the time that the fight was announced, all the way through the training, all the way through the fight, and the end of the press conference, and at the point in time where Keith Thurman wins that fight. But anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section, and with that, I'm out. Peace.